as everybody knows, the U.S. Army, when they were choosing their new sidearm, said no to Glock and said yes to the Sig Sauer P320. And I want to take a moment and really address why that happened, the realism to it of why that actually took place, because we can see that in many aspects of the military actually taking on the Glock pistol, and really kind of defining, well, why are some parts of the military taking on the Glock pistol when the overwhelming side of the U.S. Army said no to it? And that really is going to define why that happened, because ultimately they wanted a modular pistol. Let's start there, where you can kind of interchange parts, where you can have kind of a compact grip with a full-size slide, or a compact slide with a full-size grip, and you can interchange the parts. And Sig Sauer P320 kind of invented that concept for the most part. And a lot of people suggest, well, that is why. That was the big reason why. That was not the big reason why, because now what we're seeing is Glock has actually made all sorts of modular capabilities with their handguns. And they did that in response to militaries around the world wanting that. But the big reason is not that, because they've done that now. And the U.S. Army will continue to say no to Glock, simply because of a lack of external manual safety. And that's really what it comes down to, because Sig Sauer, when they were working with the U.S. military, essentially took their P320 and put a manual safety on it. Voila, problem solved. Glock did not do that. Well, why did the military need that so bad? Well, and how come then there's some branches still using it? Like, if that's the big deal, why are some branches in the military using the Glock? Well, it really comes down to big military or small military. And kind of what I'm getting at is the branches of military that are using Glock are the special forces, Delta Force, places like that. These are people who are very experienced and very qualified to use handguns. Whereas in the Army, you have probably tiny little percentages of people like that, but the overwhelming is, Bubba from Mississippi. And, you kind of got this sense of, you kind of got Bubba, and then you got everything in between, two people that could probably qualify for something like Delta Force, but they just enlisted into the Army instead. And you have kind of everything in between. So the U.S. Army does not trust its recruits to handle a striker-fired handgun without a manual safety. And that is a real thing. That is the realism of it. They'll trust their Delta Force and they'll trust their advanced soldiers with it, because they see it as it's just something that's eventually somebody's going to accidentally shoot themselves pretty consistently. So they're just not going to risk it. Part of the general big military of the U.S. Army requires that manual safety. It's how it all really is. It's just the real part of it. Again, it's because you'll see, the Delta Force and all of them, they're using a Glock pistol, no problem. But the U.S. Army as a whole is not going to allow their fresh recruits to be armed with a Glock pistol, because they just simply don't trust them to be able to handle that type of handgun. And regardless how you feel about Glock, I love Glocks. I believe that it would have made a fantastic sidearm for the U.S. military. But I understand that concept. I see where they're coming from. And to be quite honest, if I was the authorities that be, and I was the one making the decision too, I'd look at, some of the recruits, which you wonder who signed that person up, who gave that person a gun. That person should not have a gun. There's a bunch of those in the military. Ask anybody that's been in the military. There's a bunch of people that make you scratch your head and think, who allowed that person in? And then they're arming these people. So they want manual safeties on them. I would too. You know, again, if it was up to me, which it's not, but if it was, I would want a manual safety as well. I might even want the first, round to be double action as well. I that's where I would be as far as arming just the Army as a whole. You get into the elite military units, shoot, whatever handgun you want. I trust you, if it was up to me. So that's really the real reason why the military is still kind of saying no to Glock as the big picture, but they are saying yes to it in many other realms. And honestly, if Glock was just simply to put a manual safety on their Glock pistol, I think, and had it modular at the time, they probably would have got it. There was also some price issues there too. I think SIG came about $150 million less than Glock. That's a pretty significant number as well. But I really believe that the reason they continue to say no, because it's not the price. I mean, they'll spend $150 million on paper. The military, $150 million is nothing. That's a couple bucks to the U.S. military. So I don't think it's the price. And it can't be the modularity anymore. And it could be decisions have been made and they're not changing anything, which I believe that's strongly what it is. But until Glock gets a manual safety on their handgun, at least for the military, because even if I go out as a civilian and I go to buy a Sig Sauer P320, it's not going to have a manual safety on it unless I buy the M17 version or whatever, the ones that were actually made for the military, and they made them for civilians as well. They're going to have that manual safety on it, but I'd have to buy the military version to get that manual safety. Glock should too. I think there's a lot of people that don't carry Glocks because of that reason. I think they'd be wise to do that. But I believe that the military as a whole in the big realm of things is not allowing their common soldiers to carry Glocks because they don't trust them. Any thoughts or insight on that? Definitely put that below. Do want to take a moment and say most people watch the channel, not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. It greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That link is below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.